2019. Before we begin, we would like to make a few housekeeping announcements. Of course, first and foremost, we aim to make this event as sustainable as possible. We encourage everyone to avoid printing and, of course, to use their personal computers and handheld devices to access the program through our event app and website. You may also search for UNEP events in your app store or visit sos2019.c-circular.org for the event app. The program is there, the profiles of the speakers, and of course the schedules for each day. You may also notice that our conference center is single-use plastic-free. And of course, that is why we are here this week. We invite you to refill and reuse your water bottles at our water dispensers. And of course, they are all over the United Nations. We also have a coffee cup deposit scheme in the building, but I know a lot of you probably already brought your own cups as well. You will also find sustainable food options in our cafeteria on the first floor and at our coffee corners. Please help us to make Sea of Solutions more sustainable, and of course, we can all do this by leading by example. All right, we are now about to begin, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you again so much for being here this week. I am Antoinette Toss, and I'm truly honored to be your MC and, of course, moderator for the first session for today. This year, I have been greatly honored to be appointed UNEP Goodwill Ambassador, but what has been most meaningful in my life has been our journey through nonprofit. And the past couple of years, it has been very empowering and inspiring to see that people are really coming out and speaking out about these issues: plastic pollution, climate change, and not just that, how they are all interconnected and how the solutions actually do exist all over the world in different ways and forms. This week, we are not here to talk about the problems and the issues because we are all very well versed with them and the whole world is crying out for an answer. This week is about solidifying these partnerships, making them strategic, innovative, and how do we engage every single person on the planet to take action through different multi-sectoral programs. We are grateful that this week we are placing emphasis not just on the issue, but that we were able to invite key individuals who truly have the power to create answers. And for this first session, called Localizing Multi-Stakeholder Coordinated Actions for Fighting Plastic Pollution, we are going to speak to representatives from the government and, of course, from the youth, the community, and the economic sector. Tackling the problem of plastic pollution requires a range of measures at the local, national, and international levels. Businesses, governments, academia, and the civil society are bringing innovative ideas, resources, and expertise to implement practical solutions to fight plastic pollution. There will be 3 keynote speeches in this session, highlighting these multiple perspectives. The session will demonstrate coordinated policies, technologies, research and innovation, business practices and behavioral change actions, and initiatives from national and local government businesses, communities and youth, promoting local solutions to plastic pollution. This session will also seek to highlight local solutions with the aim to encourage multi-stakeholder partnerships, partnerships being the key word. Now we will hear messages, 20 minutes each, and following that we will have a panel discussion, and we would like to invite each and every one of you to please think if you would like to share a question, a brief question that our guests can answer for you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, our first keynote speaker. Our first keynote speaker for this session is the Deputy Secretary General, Environment and Climate Change of the Ministry of Energy, Science, Technology, Environment and Climate Change, Malaysia. Formerly, he was Deputy Undersecretary at the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. He played a key role in the government's decision to no longer provide drinking water in plastic bottles or food wrapped in plastic at its events, in a bid to cut down single-use disposable plastics. His achievements include work with the government's Biodiversity and Forestry Management Division as he led the task force preparing the final draft of Malaysia's access to benefit sharing. He holds a doctorate in biodiversity governance and Master of Science in Environmental Management from the University of Nottingham, Malaysia, campus. Ladies and gentlemen, our first keynote speaker for the day, Deputy Secretary General, Environment and Climate Change, Malaysia, Dr. Nagulendran Kangayat Karasu.
All right, good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. While we wait for the clicker to come, because I need to change my slides, right? All right, it's here. Thank you, Antoinette, for the kind introduction. I mean, we've now got a goodwill ambassador, and that's really important to have public figures to champion these very simple issues, but very difficult to implement. So it's great that we've got people like this coming to the forefront to help governments, to help various stakeholders to address this plastic in the environment issue. So I'd like to thank UNEP, COPSI, the government of Thailand, government of Sweden for making this happen. I know we are talking to a group of converts, so I think I'll take the cue from Antoinette. We will not focus on the problem, but what I'll share in this little time that I have is what Malaysia is doing to address this issue of plastic in the environment. Right. Okay. All right. So the extent of the impact of this anthropogenic problem that we are facing, I mean, plastic falls in the same rank as biodiversity loss, climate change. But to me, I think plastic in the environment is a more real issue because, you know, when you talk about climate change, it's like 40,000 feet. People don't really know whether climate change is really impacting us. I used to joke that I'm losing my hair due to climate change, but, you know, climate change is something quite abstract to the man in the street. But plastic in the environment is something that they can relate to, and it becomes more important. Maybe you can go to the next slide, I think the clicker. Right. I think it becomes more important when you bring the narrative to individual level. So plastic has been there, it's one of the best creation of mankind, but when now it becomes a problem, the battery, is it? Yeah, thanks. I think this kind of narratives, this study done by WWF together with University of Newcastle, trying to show that you may be consuming about a credit card size of plastic every week, which is 5 grams of plastic every week. While this is alarming, it's also important for our work because in our country, our experience is until it affects you at an individual level, people will not take action. I mean, climate change is happening, but nobody really knows what to do. But once you can bring the narrative to an individual level, and this kind of studies done by reputable universities, funded by prominent NGOs, is very important when you bring this narrative to a local level. And what's really interesting in Malaysia now, whenever we go for a plastic forum, we are getting new people, people who never talk about plastic. I was at a conference 2 weeks ago, and you got an oncologist, a doctor who studies about cancer and a colon cancer, started coming to the panel. He said never in his life he thought he would be talking about plastics, but he decided to speak about plastics because as he studies the morphology of certain system, the gut system, he's finding microplastic that could probably, of course the science is not conclusive with this, probably augment cell mutation and all that kind of thing. So this kind of narrative is very important when you bring it to the local level, to an individual level, so that people will start thinking to change. And this probably resonates very well with the kingdom of Thailand and probably many of us with the Eastern culture. Plastic is like karma. What you sow, you reap. What you throw out, you get it back. Right? So it's really important in this context. So it just shows how the theory of karma happens, right? So this narrative is very important. So we did a study recently with Malaysians, and to see what really is important, and this slide shows you, I'm sorry if it's not so clear in the projection, Malaysians feel global warming is big, it's a big problem. Air pollution, of course, is a real issue for Malaysia because we often get haze. Haze is something real, it's seasonal, it comes, it goes. But what is ranking third is dealing with the amount of waste we generate, and that's very important. So that's a big issue for Malaysia. And over-packaging of consumer goods. And yesterday we were in the Plasticity Forum. We were very encouraged to hear how industry is now rethinking about how they deal with packaging, with plastics. That's very important because I think some materials are just overly packaged. And in Malaysia, this is a concern among the people based on a study we did, right? So What's also alarming for the Malaysian context is we Malaysians use 70 kilograms of plastic per person per year. The region's average is 20 kilograms. So this is a big issue for Malaysia. And I think probably in the first day of this forum, you've been bombarded with slides showing Malaysia is top 10 in terms of mismanaged plastics as well. So our consumption is high, and we are way above the region's average. So we need to do something about this, right? So we also asked people who should act on plastic pollution. Overwhelming, so this they could answer not just one, it was a multiple choice question. 80% felt this should be the government. But we were encouraged when we saw this coming into the equation. They too felt that they need to take action. So the consumers also, so this is a good indicator to the government that the Malaysians are ready to also take action alongside with the government. But we feel this balance needs to get more balanced because we feel the industry and different stakeholders have got a role to play in addressing plastic pollution. Right. So what we have done, this is of course a problem that has happened long time, and so what we have done so far is, like every other things, we come up with a policy, we come up with a roadmap. So we came up with a roadmap. So we did study, and we thank UNEP. UNEP came up with this very good publication about what governments around the world have done to address plastic pollution. So our Prime Minister thought we should just ban single-use plastics. But we interacted with the industry, and we found that that will be not advantageous to Malaysia. We've got a huge plastic industry in Malaysia. It brings a revenue, depending on how you look at the value chain, it's about $200 billion industry in Malaysia. So we thought banning plastic will not be the way forward. So we're using market-based instrument, and we are taking a phased approach. I was just reading some reports of countries that have tried to ban plastics. Some African countries have tried to ban plastics, but it's just so difficult, and then it becomes very difficult to implement in banning single-use plastic because they still have got a place if it's used wisely. So we're taking a phased approach. We're using market-based instrument. I hope the QR code can be scanned from that distance, but if you want to download our roadmap, you can just click the QR code, or you can go to our ministry's webpage, which is mastec.gov.my/plastic, the C is with a K in the local language. So this roadmap in a nutshell is taking a journey for Malaysia from 2018 till 2030. The first phase is just looking at the low-hanging fruits, is plastic bags and straws. We are trying to use market-based instruments. We want people to pay for plastic bags, hoping that this payment, user pay principle will then reduce plastics. And this is not something innovative that Malaysia is doing. I think Ireland did it. When Ireland did it way back in 1992, they managed to reduce 96% of single-use plastic consumption. And in Malaysia, some state governments have already taken the lead in this, and they have shown that this mechanism could work in reducing plastics. We're also not giving plastic straws by default. Unless you are differently abled, you can then get plastic straws, but other than that, you will not get a plastic straw. So this has got 3 phases. We hope that Malaysia is a federated system of government where we've got federal government, state government. So we are hoping that all the state governments will get on board by 2021 to have a market-based instrument to regulate single-use plastics. Then in the second phase, we are moving on to looking at alternative biopolymers. And I'll talk a bit about it in later part of my slides. Because Malaysia is a country blessed with biodiversity, biomass, we feel the solution for an alternative biomaterial, which has got the utility value that we want in biodegradability, is hiding somewhere in our rainforest, we believe. It could be a reality, right? So that's something that we are doing. So when we came up with this roadmap was frankly very much government-generated roadmap. We had very mixed reaction. The industry got all upset with the government, so you're now banning plastics. And are you crazy because it's a big industry? But we had to define it single-use plastics. And we told the plastic industry, it's an opportunity for you now to rethink your business model. And for businesses, when you produce something, you must start thinking about the life of that produce that you're producing beyond the consumer's usage. So we will share later how the industry in Malaysia is also now moving towards supporting this whole global and national initiative on addressing single-use plastics. Right. So having a roadmap, as I said, alone is not enough. Having a roadmap is the easiest thing to do. 4 or 5 people sit around. With the help of Google, you could come up with a roadmap very fast. So we came up with this roadmap very clearly defining what Malaysia is going to do in first phase, second phase, third phase. We wanted people to start adopting some bio resins, bio-resins, which we have standards for, which I'll share. So we came up with a tax incentive in 2019 to gently nudge industry to move towards a more greener pathway. So we came up with tax incentives. Then we had, since 2016, a standard for plastic bags to have an eco-label. So it originally had biodegradable, compostable, photo, and oxo, but based on prevailing science, we have removed oxo and photo-degradable plastics, because the consensus among the scientific community is that photo and oxo plastic bags break down into microplastics and cause bigger problems. But while I say this, I qualify my statement by saying it's the prevailing science, because there are also scientists who are saying there are now innovations that can make photo and oxo-degradable plastics be as good as a normal biodegradable bag. So if you come to Malaysia, some state governments have replaced conventional plastic bags with this kind of plastic bags, biodegradable plastic bags, which has got a standard, a national standard. They have to put it on their bags. But while we have this, there's a story to it that I'll tell you in a while's time. We're also doing R&D, big-time research and development, and my ministry has got a long name. It's Ministry of Science, Energy, Science, Technology, Environment, and Climate Change. So we also hold grants for research. So we are giving out requests for proposal, RFP, maximum 5 million each, for a person or any organization, even private sector, that can come up with an innovative solution to find a biodegradable material that has the utility value that we want. Because there's this whole big misconception about biodegradable. They think that many biodegradable bags, many people think you throw it into nature, it will just disappear. No, it doesn't. So we need. And there are little breakthroughs happening at one of our universities where we are a country blessed with oil palm plantation. We are feeding microbes oil palm so they get fat and healthy, and they can secrete biopolymers that now is showing some good, effective utility value, that it degrades in the environment totally without any residue. So we hope that could be mainstream. We're also concerned about the cost, because hydrocarbon plastic bags are so cheap. They're only 6 cents, Malaysian cents, whereas the current competitor is about 24 cents, and we hope what is happening in our lab will become, and Malaysia can be a hub for these biomaterials. We also got empty food branch. You know, once you harvested palm oil, the empty food branch has really no value. So we are trying to make that into alternative packaging materials, and that we have given. And the third one was something that we were thinking, should we invest our money in this? So as I told you earlier, we have got these plastic bags, right? These plastic bags cost 24 cents, and businesses are moving towards this pathway. But there are people, just like how the music industry gets pirated, right? Michael Jackson gave up on us because his CDs get pirated. People are also pirating plastic bags. So people produce hydrocarbon bags, and they just get a stamp and they stamp it eco. So we are, and our enforcement officers really can't say the difference between a conventional plastic bag and a biodegradable bag. So we are investing on a rapid testing kit on helping enforcement. This is something that we are not so excited to help, but we have to do it, right? Because we need that in place. The government, the federal government of Malaysia, it's unprecedented. I've been working for 25 years, so you can guess how old I am now. Unprecedented, we have come out with an order to all government agencies. We've got a country of 32 million people, 1.6 million are civil servants. So we are banning single-use plastics in all government activity, government departments from any single use. And these are the categories we have listed, from plastic wraps for food, straws, and mineral water bottles. So it's great that this meeting is a very green meeting as well. So another thing, as I told you, the roadmap that we did in 2018 was very much government-driven, of course, with consultation. Now we are trying to change. It shouldn't be always government-led. So at local level, we are trying to get the industry, different stakeholders, NGOs, think tanks, and the government to form a pact. It's not our innovative idea. It's something that the UK government has done, the UK Plastic Pact. We are trying to do it here in Malaysia so that it'll be a stakeholder-defined action from now on. So the stakeholder, funded by industry, funded by government, will then decide by 2025, packaging materials will have 35 or 40% recycled content. We want them to define it, because I think this is the only way forward, and they need to be in the act together. So this is something very new. It was launched only in October last year. We have got a core team of some multinationals. Malaysia, 99% of our industry is small and medium scale. We hope these multinationals through their value chain of business, will start nudging the small and medium scale to move towards this trajectory. So this is something that we are very excited about. You can scan the QR code to know more. SEPA is communication, education, public awareness. This is the heart of what we think we need to do on plastics. I recognize some of my friends from the NGOs who are here. Reef Check, I was told, did 100 locations for cleaning up the ocean. And whenever you clean up the ocean, you still get back plastics and marine debris coming in and in and in. So I said, it's really perfect karma in practice, going and coming. So, but this is all very important because they are engaging the people in the street. So people are now understanding what their actions has been causing pollution. And Malaysia is the 9th most visited country in the world, so tourism is big. So we need to keep our beaches clean. And we've got huge amount of SEPA activities. While we are doing so much of communication, education, and public awareness, something is not happening. Behavioral change is happening very slowly. So my earlier narrative is very important. When plastic affects you at the individual level, we hope that could nudge behavioral change. So that's very important. Enforcement. So when plastic became limelight, our minister, we have a new minister, and the first time ever in the history of Malaysia, we got independence in 1957. Last year was the first time we've got a new government. We are very tolerant people. We very seldom change government. In fact, we have not changed. First time. We've now got a young minister. She's featured here, if I can. She's the minister. She gave us a KPI, close down 100 illegal factories. My colleagues from DOE has been working very hard. By March, we closed 139 illegal factories, and now it's about 170 factories. So we were getting concerned, where are these plastics all coming from? So we had a lot of enforcement, then we went to the ports. Unprecedented. My colleagues from the Department of Environment, they are here. They are not used to this ecosystem. They used to do enforcement everywhere else. Now we had to move them to the ports, and we found this. So that explains why plastic is keep on coming into the country. So these are all, this is the minister, this is the deputy minister. We've got two ladies reflecting Mother Earth probably as the Minister of Environment. So these are all containers coming from every part of the world, right? So this is something we are concerned. I'd just like to underscore my statement. Malaysia consciously imports clean, homogeneous plastic for plastic industry. But what we are getting is rubbish. This is something that we are very concerned about. And this enforcement is going on. We have sent a strong message that we want to send back this waste to the country of origin. We are happy that Basel Convention has made some amendments, but it's really, really difficult to send back the containers to the country of origin. It's really difficult. So I think my colleague on the first day did allude to this point quite a bit. So what's the problem with the ports? We have got an approval permit system. So what these people do is, the first 1/3 of the container is usually clean. So the customs let them come in. Because the customs is so busy, they just got not plastic to look at. They've got so many other things. But when you take out the 1/3, the back 2/3 is waste. That's one problem. The second problem is false declaration. We consciously import plastic with the code 3915. These people declare it in various other codes, and that misguides enforcement agencies. So this is something that we will need, and I'll talk a bit more as I end my speech. We need global action. It's huge. It's unprecedented in my years of service where a minister goes down and does enforcement together with the team from Department of Environment, SW Corp, many other agencies. It's a multi-agency approach. And we fought together with some Scandinavian countries and many other countries to make amendments to the Basel Convention, and we are glad that amendments is there, and it will come into force in 2021. So this is very important because Malaysia realizes Malaysia cannot be in this fight alone. We need global action and regional action. So this is something, and we are thinking if Basel is inadequate and if there's no other instrument, we may need an international framework to address plastic pollution. Because as the anchor person said, we know the problem, but it's huge, right? There are studies showing in the 20 minutes I'm speaking, there'll be 20 garbage trucks of plastic entering the ocean, right? So the reality check, Malaysians, again, now back to Malaysians, while we have all this, only 56% are actually concerned about this whole thing. These are some figures, 42% only recycle, and this will bring me to another point. Why is there a very low level of recycling? Is because an absence of integrated waste management. So some people, they diligently segregate waste, they take out the label, and here comes the garbage truck that puts everything into everything is mixed. So this is something that we really need to address domestically. And actually, this is just not for developing countries. We know some colleagues in certain parts of the world who do diligently waste segregation, but they're getting very angry because their countries are shipping this waste to developing countries, only to know that it's going on to pollute another country. So this is a problem not only in developing country, but developed countries who think they're doing this fantastic work of waste segregation, but it's not going to recycle pathways, because only 9% of all plastics we have created is recycled. So they are ending up somewhere, right? So we are very encouraged. Malaysia is not doing the blame game. We are very encouraged with other countries who are now actually working with Malaysia. They are sending their enforcement agencies to Malaysia to have a look at the solution. And they are alarmed. They are shocked that their country is actually sending this kind of plastic to Malaysia, right? So only 2/3. So while we are doing all this now, you are probably more aware than 1/3 of the Malaysians who are not aware about what government is doing on plastics. And these are some other statistics that Malaysians say. They are only 56% support 20 cents, but we feel this 20 Malaysian cents is very powerful because Malaysians don't like to spend on things that they don't want to spend. So this 20 cents, we hope, will nudge them to bring their own recyclable bags and all that. Right. So what more has to be done? I mean, while all that has been done, we've done R&D, we have tax incentives, we've got a roadmap, we're doing SEPA. What else needs to be done? I think Malaysia, because of the nature of our government, we are so frayed in terms of different agencies looking at waste. We need a climate resilient integrated waste management in place. And I think this is something that many other governments will need as well. And we need a circular economy roadmap. We do not have. Many industry is already starting to show interest in moving a plastic circular economy. And this is something that we hope to be drafted by 2020 to make people think beyond a linear economy. And it's not going to be that easy. I think my friends from Coke will share. PET bottles, we know science tells us that it can be recycled 7 times. But in Malaysia, which is predominantly a Muslim country, the religious authorities do not allow PET bottles to be recycled. The reason because of religious concerns. Because in Malaysia, once a bottle, mineral bottle is used to carry water, we Malaysians are very innovative. We put many, many things into that bottle and carry it along, including liquor probably. So that is concern among the religious authorities. We just had a discussion with them to see how we can break the science and the religion so that we can allow for PET bottles to be recycled back to PET bottles. So that's very important. We are looking at extended producer responsibility. We heard a lot about it in the last 2 days or 3 days. That's something that Malaysia wants the industry to start thinking. Some of them are already thinking about this. And we hope through the Malaysian Plastic Pact, we can move this. Market-based instruments from taxes to incentives is something there. We are still thinking of probably taxing the hydrocarbon-based plastic bags once we get an alternative polymer which is cheap and effective. So that's something that will come in 2022. And we need science and more science. As I speak and as we speak, there will be 10 scientists telling you biodegradable bags are fantastic, 10 scientists will tell you it's bad. So the government needs science and more science to make informed decision-making and policy. And at a regional level, there's so much to share on this. And potential of green technology and, of course, the Industry Revolution 4.0 in coming into the waste management equation. We know some countries have really embraced the Industry Revolution 4.0 to make waste management more effective. And these are potential for the region growing in green technology and IR 4.0. SEPA, communication, education, public awareness, but more towards behavioral change. I think we are in an age where information is everybody. Everybody has got info overload, but we see it and we are very disassociated with it. We need to bring about behavioral change in living more in harmony with nature. And laws, we have not come out with a law on plastic. We are thinking about it, whether we need to use laws, but we are not a big fan of laws because I think in this age and day, we could use other mechanisms. And of course, a treaty. That's something that I alluded to, looking at the amount of waste that is moving among countries. And I think this will drive whole new plastic economy. So plastic is not bad. I'm repeating that. Hydrocarbon plastic, while it still has a place for its utility and its convenience and many other things, but we need to drive a new plastic economy, looking plastic at a different perspective and trying to circularize that linear model that we have now. So I think this is, of course, our federal capital, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nagu. The plastic pollution problem does not just have one solution. There are many solutions that can come together to create different answers. It's a case-to-case basis for different regions, different countries, and as we make efforts to make not just regional policies, but international policies, we have to remember that plastic pollution also directly affects a lot of different elements. First of all, marine biodiversity. We come from the Philippines, which is known as the center of marine biodiversity in the world. But sadly, we are also known to be the third plastic polluter in the world as well. So there is a lot at risk. There is a lot of value that can be lost, but there is also a lot to be gained through research, through insight, and of course, through community action. We are honored that our next keynote speaker is here with us today. He is the president of the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia area and has an extensive career in international affairs. He joined the Ministry of International Trade and Industry in 1976 and has assumed numerous positions since, including representative of the Asia-Pacific region of the Japan Overseas Development Corporation, director of the Southeast Asia and Pacific Division of the Trade Policy Bureau, and vice governor for the international affairs of the Ehime Prefecture, among others. He assumed position of governor for the international affairs, and of course, he is also the area executive director in June 2008 and subsequently was appointed as its first president and reappointed as president for a third 5-year term. He is also visiting professor of Waseda University, Dharma Persada University, honorable professor of Guangzhou University, and fellow of Musashino Institute for Global Affairs, Musashino University. He graduated from Faculty of Law, the University of Tokyo, Japan. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of the Economic Research Institute for the ASEAN, Professor Hidetoshi Nishimura.
Dr. Nagurendran, very excellent presentation. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. It is my pleasure to present several good practices for multi-stakeholder coordination, as well as the area's activities to combat marine plastic debris. Next, please. Since the adoption of the ASEAN +3 Marine Plastic Debris Cooperative Action Initiative in 2018, ASEAN have continued its effort and formulated the ASEAN Framework of Action of Marine Debris in June this year. Regarding the G20 stream, G20 Energy and Environmental Ministers meeting in June this year concluded the G20 Action Plan on Marine Litter. In order to respond these global and regional movements, thanks to the Japanese government support, ARIA is determined to contribute to the regional knowledge center on this issue in ASEAN +3 region. Various measures need to be addressed to solve the issue of marine debris, and ARIA has implemented a study on waste management, plastic recycling, and circular economy. Next, please. Today, I would like to highlight 3 topics that we need to address to reduce marine plastic debris in terms of localizing multi-stakeholder coordinated actions for fighting plastic pollution. Number 1, production and consumption. Number 2, waste management and recycling. Number 3, collection of waste from the environment. Next, please. First, as an effort to reduce plastic, of course, it is simple but important to reduce the amount of production and consumption. Nowadays, due to rising the social awareness, several countries try to introduce regulation on ban or levy on the use of single-use plastic, such as plastic bags, straws, and styrofoam in national and local level. Next, please. Second, another effort is to promote the waste management and recycling in the municipal area. In developing countries, there still remains the traditional collection system of recyclables, which rely on private waste collectors who try to collect recyclable waste as cheap as possible, such as picking recyclable waste from waste collection points or disposal sites. But some dealers of recyclables, including junk shops, buyback centers operated by local governments, and waste banks supported by local governments, open the buying price and ask citizens to bring recyclable waste separately to shops or recyclable waste collection center. Next, please. Some recyclable waste is not valuable enough for households to bring it to buyback center or junk shops. But even if unit prices are cheap, the large amount of waste may generate good revenue. Some collection programs are organized by communities, Parents and Teachers Association, PTAs of school, or religious groups. Household donates recyclable waste to contribute to activities by community, school, temple, church, and others. Next, please. An income level increase, market-based collection programs are no longer sustained. Therefore, many local governments, in particular developed countries, try to introduce public source separation programs. However, conducting intensive awareness is necessary to succeed in these programs. Next, please. However, not all municipal waste are recyclable, so that national and local governments need to address the proper disposal of waste. AREA conducts research of inter-municipal cooperation of waste management. The project obtains data of the unit cost difference between open dumping and sanitary landfill in ASEAN. The installment cost of sanitary landfill seems expensive. However, implementing inter-municipal cooperation on solid waste management is a significant solution due to realize the economy of scale. Next, please. There are several types of institutional arrangement of interministerial municipal cooperation based on the existing legal frameworks, capacity of local government, and volume of generation of waste, appropriate institutional arrangement should be applied like that. Next, please. Finally, I would like to mention the collection of the waste from the environment. We can consider how to develop the partnership for collecting waste from the sea. For example, several local governments in Japan have agreement with fishermen associations to bring back marine debris which are jointly captured with fishes, shrimps, and others. The picture shows the case of Takamatsu, Kagawa Prefecture of Japan. After fishermen bring back waste, local government collect the waste. Although not all fishermen participated, some fishermen believe such collection program is good for preserving resources. One of the features of Kagawa model is that not only local governments, but also inland local government jointly bear the cost of waste treatment. I believe this initiative by local governments in Kagawa prefectures and fishermen is one of the best practices to collect waste from the ocean. Next, please. If local governments have authorized to manage or regulate ports, pertaining ports, Dr. Nagarendran has shown a very excellent example. It's good to consider collection of waste generated on ships. Ports should have waste reception facility and properly manage the collected waste. In addition, it is good to spend the budget to have a boat to clean up the ship route in order to prevent the damage to ship screws due to garbage. The cost of operation can be covered by the fee for using port. Next, please. Lastly, I would like to introduce the interesting example of using ICT technology to monitor the littering. Pirica Inc. developed professional application for monitoring hotspot of littering in collaboration with citizens. Anyone can download the application and upload your video through application. The company make a map indicating the hot spots of littering occurred. Although this is not for the marine debris, but the advancement of ICT can be utilized to tackle with the issue of marine debris. Next, please. Let me sum up my presentation. There are many stakeholders related to marine plastic debris. We should cooperate to change our society. A single stakeholder may not solve this issue due to limit of capacity. Without supply of alternative material, it is difficult stopping use of plastics. Without waste collection service, no one can dispose their waste properly. Various stakeholders should collaborate to prevent generation of marine plastic debris and collecting plastic debris from the environment. As presented, area is now collecting good practices in the region to enrich our regional knowledge center. We hope our website will stimulate many actors in this region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Hidetoshi Nishimura, President of the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN. Now, we know that all over the world, global policies and regional policies exist. A lot of these have been brilliantly constructed, but unless they are implemented, enforced, and most importantly, unless we are able to inspire community action, these brilliant policies and these brilliant solutions continue to mean nothing. The past few years, we have seen and we've heard the voices of people across the world crying out for solutions. People want to do better. People want to be better when they find out the truth about the issues. And right now, we are going to hear from someone that has such passionate influence in the local communities here in Thailand. His voice has been heard across the country and all over the world, and he is inspiring community action not just from local communities, but in the youth and in children. A passionate advocate of the United Nations Environment Program, our final keynote speaker for this session is an actor, singer, and co-founder and CEO of the Environmental Education Center, EEC Thailand, an organization that raises environmental awareness among children through camps. The EEC is in its 5th year of operations and has hosted around 150 camps. Using nature as its classroom, the group organizes outdoor activities and camping trips to encourage young people to help protect the Earth's resources. Their mission to foster environmental consciousness in young children in order to tackle the environmental crisis from the ground up. He holds a Master in Environmental Social Science from the Mahidol University and a Bachelor in Communication and Media Studies from Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. Friends and partners, please welcome co-founder and CEO, Environmental Education Center Thailand, EEC, Mr. Alexander Rendell.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. As an environmental enthusiast, a working conservationist, and an advocate myself, it really is an honor to be talking here in my country's United Nations headquarters and speaking in front of you all. It is an honor to be speaking to you in this room, a room that has solved so many issues and a room that has saved so many lives around the world. So thank you so much for having me. My love for the environment first started at the age of 10 when I was part of a wild elephant rescue mission. Those missions saved 2 wild elephants from leg injuries. And those same elephants are still living in the northeast region of Thailand today. So of course, I am very against all activities related to ivory consumption. Back in the 20th century, we couldn't live our lives without being associated to elephant ivory. It was part of our tradition, our lifestyle, our fashion, and our hobbies. Snooker balls, or also known as billiard balls, was originally made from elephant ivory. And of course, its overwhelming demand began to put great stress on the population of wild elephants. So one day, the largest billiard balls company offered $10,000 US worth of gold to anyone who could find a replacement to ivory. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was when plastic was born. The man named Leo Baekeland was responsible for introducing plastic to the world. He was considered a legend, a life changer, a pioneer, and a hero and protector to the natural environment. And from my knowledge, he was a contender for winning the Nobel Prize. Fast forward 1.5 centuries later, we are here in this room with representatives from all over the world fighting against what was once considered a high-profile innovation. Plastic is now our environment's biggest enemy, an enemy to our wildlife, an enemy to our marine life, and a key factor to causing an imbalance to our environment. Therefore, it makes it an enemy to the future of mankind. Our ocean, the largest and most important resource on our earth, where we all benefit for food, for recreation purposes, for our economy, and for our daily living, is now in need of help more than ever. We now know for sure that marine debris harms every living thing in the ocean. Sea turtles, marine mammals, corals, absolutely everything. But what people don't really realize is that by harming them, we are harming ourselves. So whether we want to turn it into a dumpster or not, it is our choice. My main job in the field of conservation, as Antoinette has already mentioned, is being the manager director of the organization I co-founded back in 2015, EEC, or the Environmental Education Center, Thailand. I manage and I create environmental education programs with the help of academic technicians. Each program is carefully created through a process of in-depth research. We have done 150 plus camps over the last 4.5 years. In our what we call marine life camps, we train students to become young researchers, young protectors of the ocean by teaching them snorkeling, fish identification, marine science, scuba diving, and training them to become environmental advocates. In all of our camps, we have a no single-use plastic rule, a rule that parents and students have taken back to use in their own household. Mariam, some of you may know her already, was the world's first dugong under the care of authorities to live in the natural environment. We actually met her during one of our seagrass conservation programs before she became world famous. It was a very memorable encounter, especially for the students. Sadly, her life was taken away, partly because someone did not throw away their trash properly. Because sometimes it really is as simple as that. So is plastic really the material that we should be blaming? Because to me, it's more about the human behavior towards plastics that's more worrying. I went down to Krabi to educate 2,000 local kids with my team in the province where Mariam was discovered. I believe that the sustainability of our natural resources is dependent on human wisdom. This is why EEC will continue to act as a platform to educate society of Thailand on environmental concerns. We must start with the youth. We must find a way to teach and engage the younger generations. The involvement of locals in these areas play a significant part in maintaining our environmental balance. And I was surprised to how little they knew about their homes. Very few knew that the ocean they are seeing every day are habitats to numerous endangered species and is one of the most highly biodiverse areas in the country. But how are they supposed to know if no one has never told them? At the end of the session, we gave them each a piece of paper and told them to write a small note to Mariam. Most of the notes were students apologizing and feeling guilty, very guilty. So guilty that I felt guilty for making them feel guilty. So of course I don't blame them, but that guilt shows that environmental education has played its part in the same way that it has done to me when I was 10 years old rescuing those elephants. Educating the hearts is solving the issues from the root, rather than waiting for the problem to happen and then having to play the blame game. Most of the problems we are experiencing today doesn't always necessarily come from irresponsible people. Most of it comes from our not knowings in the past. But now we know, so we must focus on the future. We are in an era where we have to fix these problems, so we should look ahead. We must have a holistic approach towards our youth as they are our future. We must find a way to teach and engage the younger generations. We must emphasize the importance of educating the locals. I live here in Bangkok. There's only so much I can do to contribute to this problem, but it is the locals that I will have to depend on, as the areas I am trying to protect is what they call home. From my experience in the world of sustainability, so much effort and investment is put into industries that can contribute to sustainability, whether it's technology, whether it's tourism, and the list just goes on. And rightly so. But my point is very little is put into environmental education for sustainability. Education develops countries. Environmental education develops conservation. And it could easily be a form that could be replicated around the world if the support is there. With all that being said, 2019 and 18 was not such a bad year for us. When the United Nations highlighted the theme of World Environment Day to beat plastic pollution, people woke up with ideas and actions. We now see changes in laws and policies. Big corporates and organizations from public and private sectors are more responsible than ever. It seems like everyone I know is leaning towards sustainability. We see our social media feeds filled with plastic-related issues. It is now considered trendy to not use a plastic bag in certain societies. The Thai government has announced that by the 1st of January 2020, all shops will stop be giving away single-use plastic bags. Marine debris, environmental issue, has made it to mass media. This would not have happened 10 years ago. We have incredible innovations to reuse, reduce, and recycle plastic. Traveling around the world, it is so exciting to see so many people so passionate about having a better tomorrow. Not for themselves, but for the people around them. Let's work and hope for a better 2020. And even considering the problems caused from the past, we may have a bright light at the end of this long, long tunnel. But everyone needs to contribute. But before I leave you, I would like to make a pledge. I already did make a pledge of not using single-use plastic raincoats. Maybe not the most difficult of pledges, but I'd like to make another one today. I, as the Managing Director of EEC Thailand, will always commit on using my organization along with my social status as an actor to educate others on plastic pollution. Have you made your pledge yet today? Think ocean, think planet Earth, and together we can make this world a better home for our coming generations. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alex Rendell. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we do not have enough time to open the floor for questions, but we are grateful to our keynote speakers, and thank you so much for highlighting that taking actions from all stakeholders with their different capacities is a much-needed local response to the global plastic pollution crisis. We would like to thank you, of course, Dr. Nagu, Professor Nishimura, Mr. Rendell. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives from each of the sectors that you represent. We heard the government's perspective, of course, from Dr. Nagu. Thank you, Professor Nishimura, for bringing forward the perspective from a research organization and on the importance of research and innovation. And, of course, Mr. Rendell, for emphasizing the environmental education and awareness is incredibly important, especially to children, as a starting point for behavioral change, actions and initiatives in local and global communities. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and, of course, for inspiring action across the world. Once again, we repeat that there is not one solution and there is not one sector that can solve these problems. It is key that we work together, collaborate, innovate, and, of course, inspire each other to move forward together on the same path. Dear participants, we will now take a short coffee break, and of course, our keynote speakers will still be here. So if you do have any key questions for them that truly are valuable to you, you can approach any of them, and I'm sure they would be very happy to help answer your questions. We'd like to invite everyone to please visit the booths and exhibitions outside. There's a lot to learn, a lot to discover, and a lot to be inspired by. And of course, after the coffee break, we will be gathering here in the same room for exciting plenary sessions ahead. We have 3 coming up. First will be on the youth and community solutions, something I am personally passionate about as well. We also have business solutions. The private sector is a key element in creating change globally. And of course, government solutions to marine plastic pollution. Thank you so much once again, and we will see you in just a short bit. Thank you.